Okay, so now that we've gone over the developmental sales framework and we understand the importance of good preparation, having a goal, having an objective of your calls, what you're going to say, what you're going to plan in your opening, how you then transition into a need dialogue. Let's understand what their objectives are, have a very robust and collaborative need dialogue. Then you start making your recommendations, your solution recommendations. So be thinking about, rather than going in and talking about product first or our functionality first, be thinking about what do I need to uncover before I actually start talking about my solution. Closing on an action step, and then of course delivering on what you say you're going to do with follow through, with follow up. All right, so that's the framework. We talked earlier about not only do you have a framework of what you need to do during the sales process, there's a skill set that you should have a mastery of while you're weaving your way through the sales framework. All right, I like to think of it almost like as the NFL playbook. All right, every team has a playbook, and that's kind of the sales framework. The difference, though, is in the skill and the execution of the plays, and that comes through your skill set. And we've determined our 6 of the most important critical skills that you need to have a mastery of in order to execute on each phase of the sales model. All right. Now, what I love about our 6 critical skills is that regardless of where you are in the sales cycle, all 6 skills are emulated at any given time. So let me walk through them for you, and then I'm happy to answer any questions so that we can then do an exercise afterwards to bring it home. All right. So first and foremost, I want you to think about presence. And it's not just how you look, all right? It's not just how you carry yourself. But I want you to really think about, when you hear the word presence, what are some things that come to mind that might impact somebody's presence? Can you think of something?
How about maybe how you articulate yourself?
Very good. Sure, the way that you project your voice, even are you using slang? Are you using too much jargon? Absolutely, there's a lot of things that impact presence. And yes, it can be, to some degree, the way you carry yourself. Do you look confident? Do you come across as competent? All right, we're going to do an exercise in a minute. We're going to take each of these up one more level. All right, let's talk about relating skills. And sometimes I like to use the word connecting skills versus just relating skills. I want you to think about when you connect with people. All right, so let me ask you this. What comes to mind when you hear that somebody connects really well with others? What do you think they're good at?
Maybe finding common ground.
Absolutely, all right? Empathy, right? It's kind of seeing things from their perspective, kind of walking in their shoes. Other things we use in relating is rapport, all right? The ability to make some small talk. You'll find that sometimes if you don't have a relationship with someone, one of the best places to go is business rapport. Ask them about their business. Ask them how they got into that kind of business. It doesn't always have to be, the photographs on the wall, the fish, the kids in the soccer uniforms. Sometimes that can be more uncomfortable to be building rapport versus being a little more neutral, like with business rapport. Okay, you'll find another critical skill is questioning. And I want you to think about, do you know people that actually ask good questions, all right, that have the ability to ask open-ended questions that elicit a lot of dialogue versus self-serving or leading questions, things that would sound like, well, wouldn't you agree that, don't you think? Rather, be more open about, okay, so what are your thoughts on this? What's important to you? And then, conversely, listening, all right? So if you're going to take the time to ask questions, be patient enough to listen to the responses. Don't allow yourself to be thinking too far ahead, right, on what you're going to say next, so that you miss key words that you may want to expand on, all right, that may need more clarification. So slow down. Some of the things I think about is don't finish their sentences for them. Don't even answer your own question. If you're going to ask a question, don't answer it. Give them the opportunity to share their thoughts. All right, now I want to get into the 5th of our 6 critical skills. And it's a pretty important one, and you'll figure out it's because it's almost a combination of all of the skills put together. And that's when you are about to position or recommend your idea or your solutions. So I want you to think about these two words. Think about somebody who presents their ideas and somebody who positions their ideas. All right, when you hear those two words, when you hear them in that format, what do you see or hear the difference between presenting versus positioning?
Presenting may be more general, not unique.
Okay, almost like a generic like a presentation, right? Kind of the 57 slide deck that we go out. Now, what do you hear when you hear somebody positioned their recommendation?
That might be more customized to the person, to the client.
Exactly. And how do you get the ability to position if it's customized to the client? That's why you think of the other steps. First of all, you had to demonstrate a strong enough presence so that they trusted your ability, right? Your confidence and your competence. You've made a connection with them. You had some rapport going. You asked good questions. You listened to the responses. You questioned down even more so on what you've been hearing. And now you're able to offer a solution or an idea that is unique and customized just for them. In other words, sharing your solution from their perspective and not yours. Okay, any questions? All right, last one on checking. And I love this because it too is one of our communication skills, right? Critical skill. And checking isn't what some people think, checking in with you, touching base. It's not that at all. It's a dialogue skill, and it's really a form of a questioning skill. And it's when you've made a recommendation, when you've offered up an idea, you stop and you elicit their feedback right away. So you say something along the lines of, what questions do you have on what I've gone over? Or, how is this sounding so far? All right? And I want you to think about, why do you think it's important that periodically throughout your dialogue together, you actually stop and check with the individual that you're talking to? What comes to mind as far as checking? Okay. Sorry. All right. If you don't check, is there an opportunity that you miss an objection, or that you could potentially miss an opportunity to make your solution even better? All right. So I want you to just think, slow down, check periodically, make sure you're both on the same page. All right. That you're not way ahead on page 12 and they're back here on page 2. Okay. So now I want you to think about all 6 critical skills, and I want to break us down into some teams. And I'm going to ask you a couple of things. When I break it down into your teams, I'm going to assign each table one, and because there's only 4 tables, 2 of the tables will have 2 of the skills. I want you to answer these questions because you're actually going to teach it back to the group. We've kind of done a quick overview of what these skills look like. I want you now, as a group at your table, to answer these questions and share back with the group in a few minutes. Number 1, give us some examples of what that skill looks like. All right? Number 2, why do you think that skill made our top 6 list? All right, so what does a skill look like? Why did it make our top 6 list? Okay, and then thirdly, what might we do to botch that skill? Let's say you're in a meeting, or you're prospecting on the phone, or you're trying to get an appointment. What are some things that might not be a good example of demonstrating that skill? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have table number 1. Why don't you take the first 2? Why don't you do both presence and relating? Tell us what that skill looks like, why it made the top 6 list, and what might we do to botch it, okay? Table number 2, I want you to take questioning and listening together. Answer those same 3 questions. Table 3, I want you to take positioning. That's a pretty unique one. So I want you to tell us everything we need to know about positioning. And then the last table, tell us the importance of checking, all right? What does it look like? Why did it make the top 6? And then what might we do to botch it? And I'm going to give you just about 5 minutes to do that exercise. I'm going to have you regroup and teach back to the class what you came up with. All right, does anybody have any questions before we begin? Okay, I was just modeling the checking skill for you, okay, before you got with it. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you and welcome back from break. I told you, just as we went on break, we've had a chance to talk about typical sales approaches, all right, different sales styles like the charismatics and the technicals. We've spent some time talking about the importance of understanding that there's a framework to the sales process. And then we walked through the 6 critical skills. You had a chance to rank yourselves, number 1 through 6, which is your strongest skill and which is the one that you need to work on more than anything. Now I want you to think about a time when all 6 skills are very strongly emulated. And I'm going to try and draw a picture for you, okay? I'm not a very good artist, but I want you to kind of get this concept. All right. Okay, so what might this look like? Okay, does this look like a sport?
It's like tennis.
Very good, thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, all right, so I want you to think about, when we start talking about objections, I want you to think about this tennis court, all right? Because a lot of us like to remember things with a picture in our head. So I want you to be thinking about this particular picture. Now, we talked about one of the most common objections that you hear is you don't have a local presence, okay? Now, I'd asked a number of you to respond to what you instinctively would have said to you don't have a local presence, all right? And I have some samples of your responses. Now, I want you to picture this. When our customer, all right, lobs an objection at us, it's really kind of like, slamming the ball at us. Typically, and based on our responses that we saw, we usually fix that objection when we hear it. Like some of the responses were, well, we may not have a local presence, but we're available 24/7, okay? One of the other answers that we received was, it's not as important that we be local as we be available. Okay, so I want you to think about what some of those responses sounded like. When we respond that way, does it look like we hit the ball back at them?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. What about this response? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll leave you my business card, and if you change your mind and you want to give me a call, I'd be happy to work with you in the future. Where does it sound like the tennis ball went there? We didn't even hit at it, okay? So I want you to think about this. This places us in an adversarial position, and that's not what we want to do with our clients, okay? Our clients are not our competitors. We want to partner, okay? We want to play doubles with our client. We don't want to be on the other side of the net. And the way we do that is a couple of things. First of all 6 critical skills come to mind, okay? First and foremost, don't hit the ball back at them. Don't challenge their objection. Don't fix their objection, right? Be thinking about this formula. We call it the objection resolution model, okay? I want to paint in up here presence first, because we have relating, questioning, positioning, and checking. See, you recognize some of these skills from our 6 critical skills? Don't kid yourself. When your client lobs an objection at you, you're too expensive, you don't have a local presence, we aren't very happy with you on this project. Doesn't matter what they say, they're objecting, okay? Your presence is on display right now. Whether you're face-to-face, whether you're on the phone, trust me, they're checking out your presence right now. Now, I'm going to draw another analogy for you here. Another picture for you. I'll just add to this one. Okay. It's helpful to understand exactly what objections are. So I want you to envision this. What does that look like?
Waves.
Very good. Okay, I'm really getting good at this drawing part. Okay, let's picture an iceberg. For all you science majors out there, do you know what percentage of an iceberg is actually above the surface of the water?
Fairly small percentage, right?
It is. It's about 10%, which means that about 90% of the iceberg is below the surface of the water. So what does that have to do with the tennis court? Well, first and foremost, when somebody blurts out an objection to you, about 90% of